Hi everyone, welcome. What you see here is my green information board, and I use this to sometimes share some information before I get my gloved hand all messed up. I can hold on to my little information board and let you know that we're working on my so-called original red wiggler worms. They're even labeled as such as the original red wigglers, and these are the only worms that I can really track back to my very first batch of worms that I got something like 6 years ago, almost exactly 6 years ago. We just passed my 6-year vermiversary, and I've got those original worms to thank for it. I took those worms from a single bin that I'd received from someone, and I took those worms and started 3 brand new systems, and I kept trying to grow my population, and there was a point where they almost all died off, but these little guys made it. They started off as a tiny population, and we managed to nurse them back to health. And by health, I guess I'm also referring to their population size. So they're a nice, healthy population with even just a little bit of redundancy to have a secondary bin just in case something goes haywire in one of them. It's sort of like a little insurance policy. Make sure you still have a little something in case something goes bad. But yeah, it's kind of interesting having a batch of worms that I consider as my original worms. Wouldn't it have been weird if they had all died and then the only worms I had today would have been worms that I'd received from other people, either in the form of worms or as cocoons? Because other than that first batch of worms, I've also gotten worms from a number of different places. So this was the big focus of the last video, and I don't know if they're going to be visible or not, but there are, I could see them. There's at least 4 or 5. Okay, right there, here, and here. And is that another one? I don't know. There's snails. Little snails have made themselves at home here in my bins, and these are the only places where I can really see them. And a lot of times if I play the video back quickly, then I can actually see them moving, but to the normal pace of time, these little guys are virtually invisible because they move so slowly. During the last video, we got really up close and personal with these little guys. We got in tight with a zoom lens, and we peered really closely at these little guys up close and sped up and everything like that. So that was kind of interesting. If I don't forget, I'll put a link to that video up into the corner where you can go check it out. Pretty cool close-ups. I think the name of the video even references how we were kind of doing an up close and personal check on these little guys. And, well, let's set these couple of pieces of paper aside, because at this point they're just going to be used as bedding, but what they're getting in replacement as the new feeding zone indicators are just a couple new coffee filters and a whole pile of veggies and fruits and stuff like that, as you saw a moment ago. And even though it's not inside the coffee filters anymore, I've got a bunch of coffee here too, and worm chow and grit and bedding and all the other important things that I like to have on hand when I'm about to work on a couple of my bins. I really felt last time like I was being very stingy with the bedding, so I think they just got like a piece of thin paper kind of folded over a few times onto the foods that they were getting. Very stingy with the bedding last time. So I've got my prepared bedding. We've got those coffee filters that will be repurposed as supplementary bedding to go down in the feeding area. And after 13 days since the last check-in, it's not too surprising that we're not seeing much, if any, leftovers of the last feeding. It was a similar feeding with just a bunch of kitchen scraps that had been frozen and then dropped into the bin with a little bit of bedding. Today will be more generous. Okay. I generally like to use the feedings as just an excuse to disturb my poor little worms and unearth them from their peaceful feasting, so I can get a little glimpse of them at least for a moment or two before they scurry out of view. But I'm also very interested in seeing how they're making progress on the stuff that I'm giving them. Because like over there, bin number 2, I didn't see much, if anything, of leftovers, but here I feel like I'm seeing distinct scraps of the, I think it was part of the bedding they got last time, because it was white paper. I mean, it's not a lot, although I somehow felt like I saw another piece of it floating around. Here's the stem of a banana. Look at that thing. Making pretty good progress. So we made some space down here, so let me start out by bringing these 2 coffee filters back into play, because I always seem to forget stuff. The other stuff that's off on the side is just the paper top sheet covering, both of which are in really great shape, so we'll just go back to using them the same way. But here now, instead of just dropping in the food with a single little thin piece of paper, I've got my prepared bedding on standby here. So, wow, you know, I kind of wanted to be generous, and even though when I grabbed that first handful there, it felt to me like, oh my gosh, I've taken too much, I figured, you know what, let's give it to them. I'd be sensing it in my hands as being too much. The worms looking up out of their bedding and my hand full of stuff, seeing how much I had there, all thinking to themselves, yeah man, do it, give us the bedding. So let's just give it to them. You know, after I kind of break it apart a little bit and spread it into the holes that I created, it does seem like it's a good amount, you know, because it is going to settle. Here we can introduce a little bit of nitrogen-rich small particle size food that can blend right in between all those pieces of just pretty much carbon-rich paper and leaves. Because that's all my prepared bedding is just a mix of cardboard and paper and leaves, all kept nice and damp. And I just replenished my supply earlier today, so I was anxious to put it to nice use. So let's get to giving them what we've got. So we've got cabbage leaves. Try to be fair and make sure each system gets a equivalent portion. We've got cherry tomatoes from the garden, ones that have just been sitting around so long uneaten that they're starting to look terrible. The cucumbers, I believe, that were from the garden are all gone, so any cucumber bits we're going to see are at this point store-bought going forward. I see carrot, I see the stump end of a head of lettuce, and all this stuff has a nice bit of frost that has sort of accumulated on it. By having been in the freezer, I guess right before the stuff actually freezes up, it seems to just dump out some of its moisture into the surrounding material, and then it just freezes up. So I'm sprinkling in a little bit of pulverized eggshell to serve as the grit for these little guys. Nice little feeding supplement that you can give them if you like. And all I've got left of my worm chow is this tiny little bit. So let's be fair and distribute it to both systems equally, whatever's left of it. It's not much. Now I've got my reason to whip up some more. Been looking forward to that. I've been wanting to prepare my next batch of worm chow for a while now. I got a really nice big collection of stuff to make the stuff out of. So now we can, I don't know, I even thought about going back for another handful of bedding material to top off the feeding zone. What do you think? Should I have done it, or is it okay the way I just did it? Just bringing in the neighboring material to cover up the feeding zone. Now the feeding zone is pretty much like the pinnacle of the entire system. The level of it is so high up, it's almost like at the edge of the top edge of the system, of the container. Let's bring this little guy back before it falls off the table. Here and there I'm feeling things in my hands. I don't even know what it is. Perhaps a piece of corn cob or something. It's pretty flexible and soft and a little bit damp to the touch. So it must be some sort of veggie matter. Gradually breaking down. So yeah, I'm pretty disruptive sometimes. Not always, but pretty often. I like to just dig in and see how things look. This is definitely corn cob. I could tell from the shape of it and the little segments everywhere. So let's just see if we can break that up. It's so cool how it just crumbles into little bits if I give it the least amount of pressure. So that was kind of cool. And now we can cover up where we just fed. I mean, it's even tempting to bring in my box of leaves, but I think with that huge handful of bedding as the foundation for the feeding, I think we're in good shape. Let's just leave it at that, because on top of this, we're also still going to have the top covering newspaper, top covering bubble wrap. Lots of castings piling up over here. I don't know why, but I also feel like by agitating things this way, sometimes I'm also introducing a little bit of extra bedding material. Even if it's just a little, it still seems like it's probably benefiting the system overall to be blending in stuff that needs to be broken down, especially into pockets where it seems like there's almost only castings anymore. Perhaps it would have been a good idea to provide these systems with a little top covering leafy matter. The box is right behind me. It wouldn't take much to go get it. Maybe we could. Maybe we'll do it in such a way that we'll just sprinkle it right on top of our feeding zone indicators. Usually the feeding zone indicators go on after the last of the material inside the bin has been placed in, but maybe we can deviate a little bit and put in the feeding zone indicators prior, and then give the whole system a nice top coating. Yeah, let me get my leaves. Yeah, I got some. Let's give it to him. I did want to be generous with the bedding today. I do feel a good bit of moisture in the material, so I think it can withstand this dry stuff getting put in there. I've got a little bit remaining, but I'm going to set that aside and save it just in case I need a little at some point. What we've given them is a nice quantity. We spread it out now. We give the whole thing a nice kind of homey feel, and then the stuff will all get blended in next time. For now, it'll just sit out here on the top, and with the recirculating moisture within the bin, with the plastic coverings, the stuff will start taking on a little bit of moisture content, start taking on a little bit of microorganisms living in it, starting to feast on the little leaf bits that are in there. And then the worms will definitely like that stuff. And then the next time it'll just get blended in, and it'll do the whole system good. All right, everyone, that's it for our check-in now with the, how old are they? 163-day-old original red wiggler worm bins, doing really nice. Getting feeding number 15 today after a 13-day pause between check-ins. Feeding the worms and the snails. All right, everyone, that's it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. If you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye now.